Jackson, tell us about your business and what's limiting its growth right now.
First class business helps other brands with sustainable revenue growth. And what limits us? Well, the buck always stops with me as a founder, my friend.
I was not expecting you to say that. Okay, so the business is you're helping other businesses increase revenue. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Usually by taking over the roles of CEO, CMO, COO, and CFO. They need to be chief visionary officers. They need to be out there talking about their vision, not pretending to do roles they've never actually done before.
Chief Visionary Officer.
Yeah.
So can we dig deeper? Like I'm trying to understand a little bit more specifics of what it means in the context of like someone who is a business owner and how they should think about it.
Yeah, so I mean, let's look at two easy examples. One would be Elon Musk. He got on stage and he sold 180,000 cars that wouldn't exist for 2 to 3 years. That's visionary leadership. Another one would be Jake Larson of Video Power Marketing. We had 70,000 people per month coming to our website every single month to find out how to create their own YouTube channels or how to run YouTube ads because he was labeled the YouTube ad expert of the world. How did he get there? By being the type of leader who inspired people to put him on those stages.
So Elon Musk, I mean, he did get a lot of criticism, right? When you're talking about the, I'm guessing, Cybertruck incident, right? Where
No, that was Tesla Model 3. Tesla Model 3's launch. 180,000 cars sold, $1,000 deposits from super smart Americans, while the entire market was bare on what he was doing and said he would never make it in the car business. You're right. There's always a lot of speculation with great leaders. So if you're going to be a great leader, be prepared for a lot of people to not like you.
yeah. But it also, would you also say that it's a little bit gimmicky in the sense that you're promising something where there's a small possibility that you might not be able to deliver?
The only thing I promise to people is that you're going to die. I don't know what you're talking about in terms of a promise, but there's only one guarantee in life and there's an exit door for everybody. So my only guarantee is there are no guarantees and that this is going to be a lot of hard work and that you're going to need a team in order to build something well. So there's a lot of get rich quick people out there who will promise you other things than that, but that never came out of my mouth. So where did that come from, Abi?
No. Okay, so let me rephrase the question. So what I'm saying is if Elon Musk is promising Model 3, right, and he's saying it's going to be a great car, it's going to be this price, he is making a promise, but also there's a small possibility that he might not be able to deliver on it, right? Because there's so many risks, potential risks, right? Because the product is not there yet. So what I'm asking is like, is that like even, is it a little bit unethical to kind of like promise this without being 100% certain?
I think it's worth kind of looking at. I don't remember his exact word choices with what he was talking through, so I can't speak for Elon. But what I can say is that there was another individual who tried to do the same thing, and it was called the Fire Festival. That guy went to prison because he did not fulfill on what he was up to. So what really makes me sad, Abi, is how many people are promising this solopreneur or get rich quick path to entrepreneurs, and especially young ones or single moms, and they're like, hey, come be a boss babe and come do this. And next thing you know, you find out the person who's leading the way is using their dad's credit card or is using their husband's money in order to build. That's unethical. That's not cool. But if you're out there trying to build something, then yeah, you better understand quality assurance. You better have the systems ready to scale. You better have great leaders by your side to help you fulfill. That's how you become the Thomas Edisons of the world. But you've got to be able to fulfill. To your point, I would never work with a business owner that I didn't think was going to actually fulfill. That's like reputation suicide.
And what's the main problem they're trying to solve, and how large are these businesses that hire you?
Yeah, good question. The main problem people are trying to solve, I would say legacy builders that have been in the game for 5 to 10 years, they already know how hard business is to scale and win. And so they have this baby that they've been trying to nurture and build, but they keep running into challenges. And so by the time they come to me, they've either got one of two attitudes. On one side, they're burn victims and they feel like everybody they're trying to hire is going to be a threat to them and that they're not going to believe that this person can actually win. Those people are a little bit harder to help. The other ones are the ones who realize, you know what? I keep messing up as a business owner. I keep making mistakes. I need to learn how to delegate more responsibly. I need to be a more wise steward. I need to recognize how do I recognize who are the types of leaders that I want by my side in order to help me build. And if they've gotten to that stage, they're usually not the ones who are addicted to YouTube videos. They're usually the ones who have worked really well. They've built something worthwhile, and they just want to make sure that the team who are coming in care as much about their baby as they do. And that is possible.
How large are these businesses? You said 5 to 10 years in. Are we talking about revenue wise sub 1 million or 1 to 10 million or more than 10 million?
Well, they can be at any size. And so it really comes down to the effectiveness of their leadership. So again, I'll lean all the way back to video power marketing. We ran campaigns for John Lee Dumas. He had him and one person helping him on his site. That was it. We also ran campaigns for Nordic Track. And so we'd have to look at the public records of how big is Nordic Track, or Vivint.com. Same thing. We ran ads for them, but we also ran ads for Dan Martell. And then there's lots of people who we ran ads for that didn't quite have a name of those areas. One of them was Dr. Eric Berg. He only had 160,000 subscribers on YouTube when he came to us. But he had the leadership habits of the Richard Bransons of the world, and that's why he's at 14 million subscribers nowadays. And so these people, I don't like to give direct references for people in the here and now, because my worry for the market is then you end up assuming, oh, I'm going to get the exact same results as this person. But if that person just started with us, if we just planted the tree, sure, it might become a redwood someday. But they've still got to prove that over time. So I'm happy to try to dive in a little bit different angle, but I think it's the wrong question. I think the right question is, what are the characteristics of people who become great leaders?
You mentioned at the start of the podcast, you mentioned, well, you're kind of like coming in as a chief visionary officer. Did I hear that right?
So I said most of the people we serve, we take over the roles of the C-level, CEO, COO, CMO, CTO, CFO, because they're stuck playing them. They are most of them want to be a chief visionary officer, meaning they want to get their brand name out there. They want to talk to more people. They want to scale their message to the masses. They're legacy builders who are really into helping people, but they're stuck constantly playing around with the infrastructure because they haven't figured out how to delegate it.
I see. Okay. So I'm trying to reconcile that with running campaigns and ads. So if you're taking C-level operations, in my head, running campaigns and ads is more like a marketing function. So is that part of, like, I'm guessing chief marketing officer is part of the takeover?
Yeah, in fact, the campaigns should have a balanced influence from the COO side, the CMO side, and the CEO side. Because if you're going to have a campaign that creates scale and that creates sustainability, you've got to be able to promise something right on the front end. You've got to be able to fulfill on it in the here and now, and you've got to be able to create quality assurance in the back end. So a campaign is not, rather than bottlenecking people into silos, let's work across the departments and the operations in order to create full bridges.
Okay. All right. So now I understand what your business does. Let's talk about your business goals. So do you want to define it in terms of revenue, or you want to define a number of clients, where you were in 2025, and what's a 3-year revenue target or 3-year team client target?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I'm the best qualified for that particular question because that's not how we build. But I do like how Tim Ferriss talked about in the 4-Hour Work Week. He builds in 6-month segments. That's it. 6 months. He doesn't try to look further than that. And so to each their own on how they build. I'm not opposed to IBM's 100-year plan, but I also don't feel like I'm in a position to where my 100-year plan is going to be that executable. So as far as where we were at last year, we ended up scaling a little bit too fast. We ended up with an overhead of north of $30,000 a month. And I realized I didn't realize it. My team realized it. They were stressed. They were a little bit frustrated with the experiences. Things were a little bit out of control. And as a founder, I'm a typical founder. I thought everything was just fine. But I fortunately had one team member who came in, and she kind of set me straight and said, Jackson, we need to create more stability for the here and now of our people. And we need to let go of some of these aspirations. We need to pause certain things. And we came up with a new quote internally in Spanish, but I'll say it in English. And that's ultimately, Jackson, no more half-baked projects. You got to stop half-baking stuff. It's time to finish the projects. And we want to put ourselves in a position to where we've got a 6-month cash reserve. So those became 2 very pragmatic goals. And I've been in the entrepreneurship game long enough to realize too, if we don't give heed to our best team members will eventually move on and leave. So I said, you know what? Let's put my ego aside. Let's put my desires to scale rapidly and fast aside. Perhaps we can hit some of those BHAG goals, but the team wanted me to focus a lot more on the SMART goals and say, what's specific, measurable, actionable, relatable, and time sensitive, and how do we do that?
Mm.
So our primary goal for the year right now is to cap our threshold of clients at 7 clients at a time. That's it. While we have those 7 clients, we also launched the AI marketplace. And so the AI marketplace is an opportunity to build some monthly recurring revenues while we continue to lead the market on how to implement AI that drives productivity. And to tie that full circle with your other question, and then to make sure that we get to a point, hopefully by the end of the year, where we've got a 6-month cash reserve. At that point, we'll then reevaluate as a team. But this year is a slowdown year for us.
Hmm. You mentioned the overhead was $30,000 per month. What
Mm-hmm.
was the revenue like at that point?
Sometimes break even, and sometimes broke me. So
Hmm.
it was fairly inconsistent. And so part of that is Abi, we were able to take clients on up to $150. I'm sorry, $150,000 in marketing
Hmm.
operations budgets. And so if we got a big client like that, that would help us spread that payment out over a series of months in order to help them and help us at the same time. But in some cases, we take on clients that are in a much more difficult financial position. We do some guerrilla marketing tactics and other things to help build out their systems. And so it creates a little bit more of a volatility nature. And that's why, again, team was like, you know what, Jackson, this kind of works, but it creates a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. So let's be more pragmatic. Let's take on 7 clients at a time. Let's go from there.
When you set this goal of 7 clients at a time, are these 7 stable clients at a time?
What do
As
you
in, like,
define stable?
as in, like, they have stable monthly recurring revenue coming in, so they know that they'll be in the business for the long haul, or were there just 7 clients that we're currently working with?
It can be either or. So I don't define stability by a transaction, though. I find that transactional relationships are a huge problem with how
Hmm.
our country operates. And so I've been in monthly contracts that are extremely unstable, where people have promised, 2, 3, 5-year commitments. But I've also been in very effective contracts where the revenue was based on rev share, and you didn't have a month to month. You had a month to month commitment, not a long term contract in place. So again, I look back more at the attributes of the leader rather than what's written on a piece of paper. The leader will typically uh, do what they want, regardless of what the paper says. And that's why it's super important to me to find people who are, and I'll just give them my 5 values. The values I look for in leaders: are they loving? Are they patient? Are they persistent? Are they consistent? And are they reliable? If they have
Hmm.
those 5 attributes, then regardless of what we put on paper, we're always going to work towards a win-win situation for everybody.
How do you measure those 5 values? Because these are hard to measure, right? Especially your how many, like, few conversations you're having before signing on the contract, right? So how are you measuring these values in a short period of time?
Well, why do you assume that we're only having a few conversations?
How many conversations are you having?
Well, it's like Dr. Justin and Dr. Shannon Pierce. I've known them for 8 years. We didn't
Mm.
sign and start doing business together until November of this past year. And so
Mm.
I'm not in the short term get rich quick realities. I don't need to do that. Now, are there ways to measure? Of course there are. Thanks to studies on emotional intelligence and AI, it's a whole lot easier to create systems for anybody. Anybody can go online now and look that up and say, hey, how do I create measurements for these types of values? And of course, it's going to come down to some type of opinion because everybody defines love differently. My definition of love is not the same definition that you have, Abi. But
Mm.
you can typically understand um, language and relationships as much as anybody can understand music. Right? I might like one type of music, and you might say that music sucks, and you might like a different type of music. It doesn't make you right and me wrong, or vice versa. But there's usually harmony in the types of relationships that we tend to attract, and that has a lot to do with, of course, our marketing and stuff. But one of the ways that we set up our systems for it is our podcast. Our podcast is a great facilitator of who aligns with us and who doesn't. It's called Vision Pros Live. And I interview visionary leaders about what they're up to in the world. And because it's about vision, some people consider that way too much fluff. They're like, no, I'm all about hard numbers. I'm a financial advisor. What is this about vision? I want to know about execution. Well, that person's not even going to apply to be on the show. And so I don't end up having any type of mixed feelings or awkward rubbing with that person because we're so out of alignment that we wouldn't cross paths naturally. But my systems
Mm,
do a great job of organically and naturally bringing people our way that do coincide with our type of vibe and how we look at leadership. And usually you can also pick that up by the books that people read. And so if they've loved the E-Myth and they've loved Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni and they've loved Rich Dad Poor Dad, then odds are it's not going to be very hard at all to figure out a working relationship. But if they've loved books like 10X by Grant Cardone and Playboy magazine, and I don't mean to put those in the same category, but I think you get the point, then they're probably not going to feel as comfortable in our environment. So it makes it easy.
okay.
Yeah,
Customer
I got you laughing. I'm
acquisition.
good with that.
Customer acquisition. So I want you to transition to that. Is I'm guessing podcast is one of your main lead source.
Yeah.
People apply to be a guest and you interview them. It's like a good relationship, good conversation, and is that when you pitch them, or is it more like they ask? Tell us about that workflow.
Good pivot on that one. It's they ask. So I'm a huge fan of the movie Inception. That process of inception in the movie they manipulate it, but the point of inception is ultimately like, let's let other people make their own decisions for where they want to move. I'm not here to tell a visionary what to do. I'm not here to one call close them. They're going to turn around and hate me at the end and blame me if I close them. That's not very healthy. So the opportunity to help people realize that, wow, I'm intrigued by this show, and this is our pipeline for healthy boundaries. We intrigue people. If we intrigue people, they're then going to decide survival instinct. Okay, I'm safe here. Am I attracted to this person? Yeah, if they're attracted to us, then is our show going to inspire them, or is what we propose in front of them going to inspire them? If it intrigues, attracts, and inspires, then and only then will I ever invite and offer. The business world starts with invitations and offers. Just look at your LinkedIn inbox. It's full of people saying, hey, we guarantee X, Y, and Z, and you've never met me before, but let's do a relationship. I was like, what? Like, I don't even know you. But if you go into EO, for instance, Entrepreneurs Organized, which I wish I could qualify for, I'm not there yet. But if I could qualify for EO, that would be the perfect client acquisition community because EO people work with EO people. It's a safe environment, so they're pre-qualified. I do work with another mastermind group, though, and that's Dr. Lance Knob's mastermind. He has a phenomenal weekly mastermind. Anybody can come in and join. And he does a hot seat session where people come into an interview, kind of similar to this, but
Mm,
with a lot more preparation on the front end for what are the challenges the person's looking at. And then we have 10 to 15 people who are there, and they're there to nurture that person towards like, what would we do if we were in their shoes? I get quite a few clients out of that environment. And a big reason why is because those people are coming in, they're looking for who's going to help them grow. And so you can have the same thing in a physical community like BNI. You can have the same thing building your own masterminds out there. Community is a huge aspect of how I end up with my clients working with me, but it doesn't come from like I'm glad you juxtaposition the reality. We're not closing people. I won't do it. I don't like being blamed for people's choices. I'd rather put them in a position where they can make their own choice. And if that choice gravitates towards me being involved in as executive in what they do, cool. I'm cool with that.
mm. So if we were to draw a pie chart of customer acquisition, what percentage would be people or not people? These are customers coming in from podcast versus masterminds versus being part of BNI versus something else.
Well, I mean, our pie chart's small with 7. And so that keeps it simple. I would say the masterminds and communities, that probably would draw in 60 to 80% is my
Mm,
guess. Yet each one of those, and here's another opportunity, Abby. Most entrepreneurs focus on attribution and have no idea what it means or how it works. They think that single source attribution is a reality, but it's never a reality. It's always an overlap. So, how did I meet Dr. Lance? He came on my show, Vision Pros Live. And have some of his guests then later come on to Vision Pros Live in between the process of talking about working together. Yes. So, really, multi source attribution is a reality. It's not the billboard that brought somebody to the restaurant by itself, but it's also not the word of mouth referral that made the person ignore the billboard. Too many businesses try to focus on the game of conversions and they get addicted to it like cocaine. And what I try to help businesses realize, and I learned this at Video Power Marketing, was if you get too addicted to trying to create attribution models that are singularly focused, you're going to end up strangling your brand and you won't end up creating growth. It wasn't until Laserwave, for instance, let go of their single attribution model due to what we showed them as far as case studies goes, where they went from 8 locations to 40 locations nationwide in 2 years.
Hmm.
They had to let go of some of the things that they thought were true. But entrepreneurs are often so guilty of putting these blinders on, and then they don't want to see what's outside of their own wheelhouse. But if we will let go of our ego and start to look at, wow, maybe there's more complexity to this than I realized, and maybe that complexity can work in my favor, that would help a lot of
Hmm.
entrepreneurs find more success.
Hmm. So when these founders are coming to you and you mentioned, taking over the C level roles, biggest bang for the buck, you're doing these marketing campaigns. What is the intention behind these marketing campaigns? Are they essentially like a repositioning of what they're already doing, or it's something else?
Good question. So, with everybody that I work with, we start with a SWOT analysis, a very intensive strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And we go in a very specific order with that. It usually takes them 90 minutes to do the first one, and it's called a preliminary business evaluation. And so, they're going to reveal their vision to us. What are their personal goals? What are their business goals? What's their current business status? What does their time look like on a daily basis? How are they using their time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc.? Then it goes into vision. Vision talks about what's the mission, what's the vision, what's the core values, what legal processes do they have in place, what templates do they have in place, what team members do they have? Do they have order for who runs meetings and how they do that? These are extremely important realities, and the reason why I mentioned to you, Avi, is because if somebody is unpre-qualified, if they haven't come through a strong nurture cycle with us, they're almost always in the wrong business model. Look at how many
Hmm.
vape shops are in the world. You think those people have a purpose to bring vape to everybody like that? Do you think that's their calling in life? I don't think so. I think that they saw another vape shop or so got high with some friend and decided, you know what, let's go and open something. Or maybe they read Rich Dad Poor Dad and were like, hey, this is kind of like the modern laundromat. Let's try to follow what Robert Kiyosaki was teaching from a granular, logical level, rather than realizing that, you know what, if I connect my business pursuits with my purpose in life, with what I really want to live for and be known for, maybe I would be far more successful. So I would say in everyday life for people who are very business centric, like maybe take a step back and find out what are my true passions? How do I
Hmm.
live with purpose? What's my purpose going to be? And how do I lead with love? And I teach that to kids all the time. Those are my 3 big steps. Find your purpose, find your passion, live with purpose, and lead with love. And so
Hmm.
there are entrepreneurs who come in who 100% change their business models with us. But most of the entrepreneurs that we pick up, they're already in a really strong position. Why? Because I tell every entrepreneur we work with, I have one rule. Don't sink the ship. And so if I get on somebody's ship and I already know they're not aligned with their purpose and I already know they're not fulfilling their passions, we're going to be in for a very rocky ride. And they're probably not doing well financially because 96% of business owners lose within 10 years. So referring back to the types of entrepreneurs I'm looking for people who are already showing signs of being legacy builders. I'm looking for entrepreneurs who have dedicated 5 to 10 years at least to their craft, and they're not going anywhere. They're going to sink on that ship if their ship is sinking. And that's why the Disneys of the world win. They don't give up. But I can come in and I can create the refinement for them and say, you know what? We need to create irresistibility around your offer. We need to make
Hmm.
sure that your company has the types of standards where people want to belong Otherwise, everything's going to fall apart and your house of cards is going to keep collapsing. Or if they're stuck in a silo, then we need to help them to stop thinking like a siloed entrepreneur. We need to help them start thinking bigger and creating more space and abundance for those around them. So the marketing campaigns, they may be paused for a few months, but it also, if they're well enough prepared and positioned, then it's pretty easy for us, like with Dr. Justin, Dr. Shannon, to say, you know what, let's run a Black Friday campaign, put $2,000 into it, and bam, $19,000 in revenue comes in within a week. It's like, okay, this is fun. Why? Because they were super well prepared for that.
Hmm. How often do founders come to you and you realize, oh, they're not really passion driven, they're not leading with love, they're not legacy builders, and you turn them away? Like, what percentage of time does that happen?
Well, very high. That's why the Vision Pros Live is such a great tool for us, a resource for that. So we don't have to manually turn people away. I don't have to have Peter at the pearly gates, and it's like, hey, go away. And it's
Mm,
not because we don't love people either. It's because they're just not fit. They're not ready for what it is that we do, and we would be a disruption to their life. So most people don't wouldn't probably qualify for wanting to be involved in Vision Pros Live. But I'll give you another example on that. If I see somebody on LinkedIn and they're a good leader and I like the way that they treat others, then I'll send them a quick message and I'll say, hey, you seem like a caring leader. I'd love to have you
mm,
come join us on the show. Would you like to see the trailer? I don't push my links in front of them ever. I give them the option to respond back and see if they actually want to talk like a human being. And if they say, yeah, I'd like to see it, then, and they express some emotional interest, then I'll send it. But if they respond back, what's the catch? I'll ignore the message. I don't have time for that. I've got too many people who really
mm,
want to be on the show. We got I think our record is 14 appointments in 1 hour.
mm,
We don't need people to come through that. So between what Podmatch does for us and between coming across people and just engaging with people who happen to like a show or maybe comment on it, we have enough leaders who come through the process that are already decently abiding by those 5 attributes that it's really easy to move them forward. And I guess I'd like to say one last thing on that, Abi. I am not perfectly loving or perfectly patient or persistent, consistent, or reliable. I have my shortcomings as well. So the idea is who values the pursuit of those and seeing, can I be my best in these quadrants, not who's perfectly aligned with it. And if somebody is a little bit rough on the edges, that's okay. But it might cost a little more to work with them. I might charge them a little bit more, the as they say, the a-hole fee. And be like, you know what, you're difficult. And I might have an honest conversation with them about it and be like, but at the end of the day, Dr. Peter in his book, Dr. Peter Drucker in The Effective Executive said, people with tremendous strengths always come with tremendous weaknesses. And we have to be willing and available to be prepared for that. And so I know that every entrepreneur we work with, they're going to have some pretty serious weaknesses or skeletons in their closet. And I try to be upfront with them from the beginning, like, hey, look, I'll share mine. I need you to share yours. And then let's help each other overcome those challenges together.
mm. Yeah, I've had similar experiences when I'll do outreaches for my podcast. Um, like recently, a guy said, "Well, I'm going to skip. I just don't bother with the pre-interview. I can come directly on the show because I don't really have time for pre-interview.
Oh
I've done
boy.
like 200 plus episodes. You can watch one of them."
Yeah, ego is one of those challenges. I'm very candid with people, and sometimes to a fault, Avi. But I'm trying to diplomatically learn how do I make sure not to offend people who are that short sighted, while also helping them recognize that that's one of the biggest challenges of the podcast industry as a whole. If we don't make
Mm,
time for relationships, then we're just doing the wham bam thank you ma'am thing. Isn't that just another way of saying get rich quick?
yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
not healthy. It's not healthy.
I wanted to double click on the irresistible offer, right? So this is like, I mean, I've learned how to create irresistible offers through like Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozy, and all the gurus that talk about this. And my understanding is that you want to create an offer which, it's first of all, it needs to have some kind of a stacked bonus structure. So you want to create a discrepancy between how much you're charging versus the value you're providing, and it needs to be like a lot more value than what you're charging. So that's one thing. Second thing
Some
is
tactic.
lean into, huh?
It's an interesting tactic, but it's almost it's outdated for the intellect, for the people who've already been exposed to this stuff. So Russell Brunson was right about that value stacking, and that
Hmm.
worked a long time ago, and it works really well in the third world now. Why? Because the third world's barely catching on to those realities. But the sophisticated market that's already heard Russell Brunson pitch this over and over and over, it's kind of like in the 90s when people were still in the car industry, when they were rolling the pencil at the prospect, because if the pencil falls off the desk, but the psychological trick is now the person grabs the pencil or the pen in order to sign for the car. What a stupid idea. It was a tactic that worked for a long time, but at the end of the day, if you're stuck basing your life on tactics and you don't understand the principles behind it, then you end up getting stuck with outdated motives and reasons.
Hmm.
So Alex Hormozy is one of the best at the irresistible offer. I'm really glad you mentioned him. There's a lot that I learned from him, even with what I learned through Video Power. To put some context for your audience, at Video Power Marketing, our producer produced the #1 YouTube ad of the decade with Kobe Bryant and Lionel Messi on Turkish Airlines. And we produce some of the most powerful video ad campaigns of all time. And it's by some of the principles that Jake Larson instilled. And so the challenge and the opportunity with your question, Abi, is there are very, very strong levels as to what creates irresistibility. So on the basic side of it, if we go that route, grab attention and make a promise, right? Talk about the problem, the pleasure, or the opportunity or the purpose. Then there's the credibility and authority. You've got to establish that and make sure to give value, a solution, or teach. And at the end, you've got to have a clear call to action. And so those are the components of the basic level. But if we leave it at that, say like, oh my gosh, this is going to make all of you millionaires, then we're completely doing the market a disservice, because irresistibility goes so much deeper than that. If you're looking at, do I want to create something sustainable that also promotes the healthy reality of lifetime value, extending lifetime value, and also that helps our net promoter score? There are levels of this. So I propose the challenge because I want to know, if we spend a few minutes on it, do we want to help those who are ready to scale at the next level, or do we want to focus on what people are overlooking in everyday business relationships?
Maybe what people are overlooking. I think that might be
Okay.
more valuable.
Then one of the greatest things you can do is just go to AI, my friends, and ask it to teach you the basic frameworks of a irresistible offer. And guess what? You're not going to win. But that's all I can do for you. Because if you think that you as an entrepreneur are going to master principles that have taken people like Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozy, and myself decades, and do it by yourself, then you're going to end up in the category that they all call wantrepreneurs, people who don't actually make it. So I like I said, that's the answer. Go to AI, ask it about the irresistible framework, and then try to build something sloppy with that reality. But if you want to create something that's truly sustainable and scalable, then you need to be working with individuals who are taking a serious interest in how to connect all the little pieces together that really create sustainable revenue growth. And that can't be taught in a 15-second podcast.
Hmm. But what if someone wants to learn and become really good at creating irresistible offers?
Then I
Would you
highly
recommend?
recommend the AI marketplace that we're building. And so I would also recommend the AI Mavericks with Austin Armstrong and Scott Simpson. So I'm part of an AI community, right? As a follower, if you will, as somebody who has mentors, and I have my own AI community. Why? Because I understand the value of abundance. I understand that competition and collaboration, they can go hand in hand with the right types of people. So if you want to build this stuff and you want to learn, lean into mentors and books, resources for people who are going to give abundantly, but who are also going to help you hear the truth and help you realize that you've got to learn enough to be able to delegate responsibly. But if somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes or trying to teach you that you can do this all by yourself, like my friends, I failed by myself for more than 10 years. It's not a healthy path. It's not a good idea to try to do things without learning how to build the infrastructure of a true business model. I don't know very many people who succeeded in it. And if we met one, maybe Avi, maybe you're one, but if they're the anomaly, why would you bet on becoming the anomaly? I don't. Hey, John Lee Dumas has got two people, maybe, but he also had Video Power. So did he really have two people? No. And so now you go and you try to do a 2-person or a 1-man shop thing to become like John Lee Dumas. What are the odds of you doing that? Oh my gosh, worse than trying to launch a real business model. So I hope that the audience learns that there's so much value in diving into humility and in diving into finding the right types of mentors who are going to help them realize it's going to take a lot of hard work to pull off.
Hmm. I do want to get into AI marketplace, but before we do, there's a question that I wrote that we haven't gotten into, which is um, the when you mentioned, you had your team tell you that we need more stability in the business. So, what was it about that particular situation or that time period where you like somehow did not self-diagnose the issue and you had to have someone else tell you that we're moving in the wrong direction?
So much. I wish I could summarize all of my flaws. I'll do my best, Abby. So it's not just one thing. As an entrepreneur, you've got so many different hats and so many different things moving that half of it was me trying to justify why our business was in a great position in order to keep my own mental stability in place as well as my team members. Right? It's a process of, okay, do you share that if we don't get the payments in over the next 60 days that we might have to cut some people, or do you keep that to yourself? Right, that's an ethical reality you have to deal with as an entrepreneur. Do Also, again, that one of these people, they were kind of exploring our company from the outside. I was trying to recruit them, and so I was trying to help them see the value of what we had in place that was kind of in shambles, rather than acknowledging that they were trying to help me fix something that I probably shouldn't have been showing them because it wasn't quite ready to be built anyway. And so I was playing with the idea of, you can be the visionary who can kind of help me fix this because you see certain things. But this person was trying to help me look past the one piece, and they were looking at my entire business model and saying, Jackson, I see what you don't think I see. I don't know if that is easy to correlate or make sense, but they weren't a consultant, yet here they were doing an amazing job of consulting with me and trying to help me step back a few feet and say, Jackson, you got to fix this stuff. And so part of it was um, ignorance on my side, but part of it was also my desire to convince them that we would build things and fix things as we go too. And then they came in and recognized that I was doing that to team members in certain ways. And again, sometimes it's good to move your team forward and say, just drive, just drive, just drive. But other times it's important to slow down and say, wait a second, 3 people are in tears. One's bleeding. Maybe we should slow down and do some maintenance first, and then pick these things back up. So that's some of it. Others would be challenges with clients that sometimes lose commitment as time goes on. Other aspects could be systems falling apart, and like we lost our website. That's a really good one. What's it called? I hate them now. Squarespace? No, not
Mm.
Squarespace. The our domain provider. I'm like so traumatized by it, I don't want to remember it. But all of a sudden, our website just goes down, Abby. They sold my website. They sold my brand name out from underneath me because Google domains sold to Squarespace, but they didn't. They actually didn't update the Google domain users about it. And so we ended up losing our website. And then I spent 8 days thinking we were going to have to rebrand. And we were able to get that firstclassbusiness.io URL back. But what a nightmare. What a challenging reality. And so when your team goes through uh, realities like that, quarter after quarter after quarter, it's super important to be the type of leader who slows down and listens and says, okay, guys, like what are the types of priorities? So whether it's about payments or it's about system stabilities, and making sure our IT infrastructure is put together and that we're planning for the future, there's lots of things that can come up for any entrepreneur where we've got to be able to slow down, fix things, create a smoother ride for those who are on board so that everybody feels not just happy and excited, but also safe with where they're at.
Yeah. How big is your team right now compared to when you were dealing with all these issues?
So we are 7 strong right now, 7 full time with a couple of executive I don't want to call them backups, but executives that we rely on in certain situations. I would say contract wise, coming in when we need it. We've also got a few silent investors who, if I tapped on their shoulder and said, "Hey, I need more time from you," they would do it. But I don't. I don't want to abuse their time. I'd rather help the current team move things forward. But back last year, our team got up to over 30 team members. And so we had over 30 people that were contributing to the process. And I don't want to take anything away from anybody who was involved in that situation. Um, Everybody, in my opinion, tried to do their best to help the company move forward. And um, when you don't have the right procedures, resources, and templates and the right supervision mapped out, it's not hard for somebody to accidentally create wrong systems or also feel unsupported and then feel like nobody cares about them, and for culture to start to clash and fall apart. So I was trying really hard to hang on to that when this person came in, and they were like, "You, Jackson, you're kind of running a government welfare program. Some of these people don't know what they're doing. And I know that
Mm.
you mean well and you want them to be able to do well, but that's not the reality right now. So let's cinch the hose. Let's let some of these people go and provide references for them and help them land on their feet. But you can't just continue to put them on payroll without them providing actual productivity." And I was like, wow, this really sounds like me talking to my clients. And so, I need that just as much as any other entrepreneur does.
Mm. And this is all remote team?
Yeah. Well, I'm
Where
remote,
where
so I think they're remote.
w- where are the team members located? Mostly in South America?
Yeah, so my vision is to bridge the economic gap between North America, South America, and rest of the world that we've talked about. I
Mm.
hire predominantly Spanish-speaking individuals. So we've got several people in Pereira, Colombia. We got one in Peru, one in Ecuador, um, and the anybody outside of those regions. I don't think so. Not right now. That's
And
our
yeah.
no
And all the
queries.
customers are in the US, right?
Right now, we have one customer in Mexico, um, and the rest are in the United States. Forgive me if one of my clients right now is Canadian. We do have equity in a couple of companies in Canada as well, that are passive clients. But that's that's where most of our clients are. 6 other clients are right now.
Do you ever customers or like potential founders come to you and they say, Jackson, I really need your help, but I can't pay you, but I'll give you, say, like 2% of my company equity kind of thing? Does that
Yeah,
happen?
so I've got several of those contracts, and that's why I'm reticent to take on too many more. You and I both know that those sometimes pan out, and they usually don't. So I don't get in the habit of bringing those on. I'd rather build towards a rev share
Mm.
with an individual, but even if I'm going to build towards a rev share, I'm going to spend a lot of time with that founder to help them realize how to raise capital in the here and now and how to make sure that they're driving profitability fast. If they're not able to be profitable, then it's there's that has a lot to do with their own inability to sell and to drive revenues. And I don't enjoy the process of coaching on that without payment because it's
Right.
stressful. And it costs a lot. And usually they can't drive their own deals forward because if they don't know how to overcome price objections, then like what value am I to them? If they've got to be the ones who learn how to overcome price objections, they don't understand the basics of smoke screen objections. I'll give them an idea, Abi, of where to go. I'll try to give them a roadmap, and then what will usually happen is I'll see do they follow the roadmap or not. Out of 100 people, probably less than 10 will. But it doesn't hurt me to spend the extra 5 to 15 minutes to put together a roadmap so that I can then look back over the months and say, who actually took action on this and who didn't? And by the way, who came back and was grateful for it? Ones who are grateful, they're the real signs. They're the ones that I'll pick up as clients later on.
Right. So usually, so correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest issue is if you take on equity, you don't get paid until there's some kind of a liquidity event. Is that correct?
Well, I'd say yes and no. Like that's how it works in theory. But ideally, if I'm taking on equity, it's because that founder knows how to get things in gear. And if that founder knows how to get things in gear, that we're going to end up driving some profitability sooner than later too. And we're going to be renegotiating the process. And so I'm
Mm.
all about the idea of renegotiating. Negotiating is one of those words that people are terrified of. They think it means hostage situations. No,
Right.
negotiating
Chris
means
Voss.
healthy dialogue, right? It's
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chris Voss, exactly. A great teacher, but he teaches too. It's about creating workability. What can you do to create a win-win? How do you end up talking through that? And most entrepreneurs are just so overwhelmed with the idea of investing in anything that they can't bring themselves to even talk about it. And so I don't mess with most entrepreneurs because they're not ready to talk to about like, no, how do we create win-win victories? They've got to have the emotional intelligence to do that.
Hmm. So I'm guessing these are renegotiations, right? Like after a certain period, like a yearly contract kind of thing.
It could be, but it's theirs to determine. So if I'm going to make a contract for, let's say I was going to hire you, Abi,
Hmm.
it's my job to attract you. It's my responsibility to create that agreement. I can certainly have your involvement in it and include you, but at the end of the day, I need to be able to attract you. I need to be able to recruit you. I need to be able to wine and dine the process and come up with the idea of how am I going to incentivize Abi to want to work with me, right? If I don't do that, then one, it's either because I have a brand that's doing just fine and I don't need Abi on my team right now, or um, I'm too scared to do it. And that's what I see in most entrepreneurs. Most are just too scared to approach the idea. They have no training on how to do it. They don't know where to begin the conversation. They're really more likely to come to you, Abi, and say, Abi, look, I kind of want to work with you, but I don't know, like how I'd be able to afford you and like how much is it going to cost to work with you? And basically what they're saying is what's the least amount I can pay you, Abi,
Hmm.
to come and work with me? That's their recruiting strategy of modern American businesses. It's like
Right.
not good. That's not going to attract top tier talent. That's going to attract somebody who's desperate for a paycheck to say yes and to get
Right.
involved. And they're going to turn around and blame you for paying them low. So those styles and strategies of negotiating and bringing people in, I see it all over the place. It's not a good thing for our country.
So the best model would be rev share, right? Because then you're building value, training them, helping them move the organization forward, and then you kind of like get a percentage of what you helped, right?
I think it's a good model. Best model, I don't know if I'd call it the best model, but it's a good model. I would say if you're in a better financial position, then don't string people along. You risk losing great individuals. So the best models to follow are the Mark Zuckerberg models, the Jeff Bezos models, the Elon Musk models. These people are buying people out at hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mm.
And people are like, oh my gosh, they're going to lose. Really? Is that why they're the richest people on the planet? Is that you're really going to stand by that? No. These people know exactly how to bring in the best talent, and they do so by making sure that they're offering stability, security, and purpose. We do that as entrepreneurs, and we don't. The nice thing is we don't have to bring in people at $100 million. But if we really want to bring in the right types of people, we need to be forward thinking and proactive about who are we going to bring in, how are we going to incentivize them to want to be involved in this process, and how are we also going to do our background checks to make sure that we don't accidentally bring in the director of Nike for our startup to run our marketing. It's like no. If he's a
Mm.
director of Nike, you know how much cushion he's used to having. He's not going to take it in the startup world. He doesn't know how to start a company. He knows how to run an established company. There's two really different differences. So I see these things again come up with entrepreneurs, and it's like we as entrepreneurs we got to have people by our side who can help consult us and counsel us to not accidentally make rash, cheap decisions with our
Mm.
personnel.
Mm. So my team is like, so we are a 16% company. My wife and I are in the US, and the rest of the 14 people are in the Philippines. How have you had challenges since your most of your team or all of your team is Spanish speaking? Have you had challenges with cultural differences and not English not being a first language when communicating to the clients?
Yes, in fact, the greatest challenges I have regarding that are with American counterparts, with people from the East that say they speak English as well. Those are the biggest challenges with communication. And it's much like somebody in a marriage who thinks that they're well prepared to have an awesome marriage. It's like, yeah, get over your ego, my friend. It's not something that you take lightly and win at. So here's what I mean by that. When I give a project to somebody who means well in Pakistan and India or in the Philippines, they're so used to virtual abuse. They're so used to being fired rapidly for anything they do wrong. And they're so used to trying to do everything they can to win a project, they're going to say yes to almost everything. They have
Mm.
no ability to say no because they don't like conflict. It's not part of their culture. And because they don't want to lose the opportunity. So they end up building garbage. On the flip side, my Spanish team does not understand the language. So their natural response and inclination is, I don't get it. And that allows us to slow down and make sure that we're communicating properly. And that process of slowing down then allows me to teach them to say things like, tell me more about that. And we have systems to train our team members on how to become consultants and how to become executive leaders. My counterparts again, I've got past team members from Pakistan, India, and Philippines, and I love them tremendously. And I wish it was easier to train them. I'm just pointing out what has been a struggle across more than 100 different team members across mine and clients, right? Because my clients all have team members as well that we work with. And so the tendency to want to be like AI, which AI is constantly like, oh yeah, let me build that for you, let me build that for you. But it doesn't really get it. Why? Because it didn't stop to ask. And so unless we slow it down to create more context for what it is we're trying to build, we end up with these really crappy projects. And so the language barrier isn't a matter of I speak English and they speak Spanish. It's the leadership communication behavior of being able to slow down and properly assess what needs to go into this in order to prevent the bad and the ugly from happening in order to achieve the good. And what primary objective do we have? What key results should we be looking for? How do we facilitate open communication? All of that is leadership language that doesn't exist most of the time in the business world. That's where the challenge of communication comes into play.
Mm. And I'm guessing that's the reason why when we opened the show and I asked you for your constraint, you mentioned being the founder because you are kind of like have to do the translations and the trainings. And since you're the only one, right, from the United States and with all the knowledge, right? So did I correctly pinpoint the
Oh, I got
constraint
you.
or?
I'll be more fair with that. No, I think the founder's always at fault, always the bottleneck, if there is one. And so the the reality is, if anything goes wrong in my brand, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility because it's my brand. I put the person in that position, and so that doesn't mean people aren't accountable for their own choices as well in that recipe. But my company is small enough to where I do get involved in most decisions that take place within the company as well. And so if something goes wrong, I probably had a hand in the process of messing up the procedure or not empowering somebody with the right direction or information in order to be successful on that. I just think it's so the constraints that are many. Um, I think every founder has to look at that and say, well, why does Wells Fargo's customer support suck so badly? It's a top-down problem. It's not the person who jumped on support and doesn't speak English very well. It's not their fault. That has to do with their managers, who's probably scared of their manager, who's probably scared of their manager, etc. And so, at the end of the day, I would never turn around and say, "Oh, well, that's this division's fault that we failed." It's got to come back to us as leaders. But
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's not because of the bottleneck constraint. No, Maria Victoria, who runs our operations, like she runs circles around me in terms of order, organization, and diplomatic conversations as well. And so, whether it's her dealing directly with one of our customers who only speaks English because they're communicating predominantly through Slack, or whether it's a situation that's going on with a team member, odds are Maria Victoria did her role really, 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 really well. And there's probably
Hmm.
something that I could have done better to facilitate more success for both of them. And so I'm not a big fan of founders who look at constraints from the outside perspective and assume that everything that we're doing as founders is, that we deserve to walk on clouds. No, we have our problems.
Hmm. In the customer success function of your organization where you're nurturing relationships, do you, since you are like the founder, do you get involved in that aspect as well? Or is that something that's also a Spanish speaking person taking charge?
Huge. Yeah, no. It's for right now. While we're at the 7 client level, that stops with me. I'm very much involved in our client relationships. There's one exception to that, the one of our clients that lives in Mexico.
Mm,
And so it's been a fun process to help the team shadow the experiences they've learned internally for so long. So I'll give 2 examples on this. We have an organization called oportunidadeslatinas.com. That's Opportunities for Latinos. And what I did back in the day is I put one of our team members in charge of being the client founder of that project. And I worked with them directly as though they were a client. And that allowed them to be able to move forward. And they started to translate all of our procedures, resources, and templates in Spanish. And I let the team run predominantly everything about that relationship in order to simulate what it's like to be a client, but also to think through for themselves, how does strategy work in relation to these campaigns and these build outs and irresistible offers. It was really neat to see them start to internalize the process and discuss it with more passion because they were starting to understand how it correlated with their own lives. Now, this new client that we have, he's been with us for about 4 months. His name's Sal Barrena, salbarrena.com. He's one of those old school consultants who's spoken around the globe, Central and South America globe, about leadership for many, many, many years. Never needed anything to do with digital marketing, yet he's super successful. And that blows people's minds in this role. But last year, he launched a website for the first time. And he started to get onto social media and he wants to expand into the US. And so we've got a dual opportunity to help his Spanish growth while also translating and positioning him to start doing leadership workshops in the United States. And so I've asked the team on this occasion, guys, it's y'all's turn to do what I do for the clients. And you guys are going to work with Sal. And Sal's such a great leader that I brought this up to him too. I was like, hey, Sal, you're in a unique position. You're going to get to train directly with the team and learn how to train them and direct them. They're going to fall short on occasion. They're going to have things that they need to learn and understand. I will be there as a backup to help them directly. You and I will work together directly as well. But in the meantime, lean into this team and work with them one-on-one as much as possible, because the more they start to extract your vision, your leadership, your culture, your marketing needs, etc., the more likely they're going to be able to provide for you better than they've provided for any client in the past. So let's
mm,
exercise that strength. And so this week they had a great opportunity of doing that and dividing up some of the information amongst different team members, where they can now go in and meet with Sal one-on-one and start to strengthen even further their understanding of how we deliver for our clients. So
mm.
really the principle, it's not about language. It's about how do we empower our team members to continue to do more, but also how do we put them in that position to where they're not scared of failure, because you're not going to punish them for it, and to where they can know that like it's a good thing to learn and to try new things like that. That's what I wish more of us as entrepreneurs would do, is stop punishing our people for trying to do things. Let's support them appropriately and let's teach them how to win.
Yeah. When these companies are hiring you, is the expectation that you and your team will come in and install like a new operating system? You're going to teach them how to do things and then you will leave? Or the expectation is, oh, we are consultants and we're going to stay with you and continue to scale up with you?
Yeah, we don't ever want to leave. No, if we're getting into a relationship, it's because we want that relationship long term. And so
Mm,
that's the type of mindset that we want. Systems and what we do, it all comes down to that SWOT analysis. So we don't know until we do the SWOT analysis. We don't have predetermined scope of works. Any program that's doing a high ticket predetermined scope of work is likely to fail. It's not, you can't expect great results from a cookie cutter reality when your business has so many different variables. And so we have an expectation with our clients that we talk about Dr. Peter Drucker a lot, and we say this is going to be a 45 to 180 day roadmap for the success that you want. And that success is usually based on that sustainable revenue idea, but we don't know how much revenue until we know the particular client. Some clients may be excited about $20,000 a month. Some clients may be like $20,000 a day. Maybe, that might be the minimum they want to look for. So we've got to look at the exact scenario the client's in. Then from there, we're going to take the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats reports, and we're going to look at how do we forecast success for the situation, what's actually happening in the market, what about their competitors, how do we conversion rate optimize their different pages. But we're also looking too on the internal side, how is leadership? Are they prepared for scale? If we bring them 100 new leads per day, are they actually going to be able to handle that, or is that going to ruin their reputation as people end up calling in not getting support? Next thing you know, you've got 20 1-star reviews because people are going, what the heck? They promised the world, but now they can't fulfill on it. I take those realities seriously for every business that we work with.
Hmm. Okay. One final topic we shelved it for the end was the AI marketplace. You want to touch upon that and just briefly describe what it is?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been building AI systems back since before people called it AI. And I didn't even realize that until recently. I was like, you know what? Wait a second. All of us have. Like, just because I built some like systems with logic and all that doesn't mean it excludes everybody else. And so we created ai.firstclassbusiness.io as an open and free resource for any professional and any business owner to go in and discover how they are relating to the future of this economy. And it is changing dramatically and rapidly. So the professionals can go in and you can actually see this checklist of items like, I organize and sort my inbox. Well, if you click on that button, it's going to show you your related AI skills. And while that may sound rudimentary to some people, most of you are going to lose your jobs because you don't know how to communicate about how you relate to the world of AI. It's a communication challenge. And we want to bridge that challenge so you can easily redo your resume, redo your LinkedIn, and learn how to communicate that you are ready for the future that most people are panicking about and aren't too sure of how to communicate. It's right there. Use it for free. On the business side, we have a business bottleneck audit. And the first time AI tried to help me build this audit, Abby, it overhyped it. It tried to create things like, I have to talk to my prospects. And I was looking at and it was trying to build a system for automating prospect conversations. And I had to tell the, I was like, look, you don't have the ability to automate this yet. You know it and I know it. Like, why are you proposing this? Propose something for Q1 2026. And it came back with, oh, shoot, you're right, Jackson. Like, this is diving into the hype that everybody's talking about, but I don't have the agentic capabilities that I'm talking about right now. And so we as business owners, we've got to find pragmatic solutions that focus on productivity and results. If we're not
Hmm.
focused on productivity and results, what you're going to end up with is a bunch of team members playing with a banana, creating images that look fun but don't drive any success. That's a travesty. And so both of those paths lead to what we call the founding 50. 50 members can come in for $50 a month or $500 lifetime access. But right below that, Abby, and this is for your audience, there's a button that says just apply for a grant. If you don't have the financial means to do that, I don't want anybody left behind in the new world of AI. Nobody. So just apply for the grant. It tells you what the rules are, just like a scholarship. If you're able to go through and say, you know what, I will share this with people, I will participate once a month in these things, then we will give you a free full ride grant to be able to come to the AI marketplace and benefit from both what professionals are doing and business owners are doing to improve their brands. And again, it goes back to leadership. It's not knowing the tools. It's knowing
Hmm.
how to be a great leader with the tools.
Yeah. Well said. Um, Actually, I lied. I did have one more question.
Cool.
So,
I like that lie. I'll take that lie. Lies build friendships. Proof.
so you mentioned when you were at scale last year, 30 people in the organization, and it was like kind of like you were struggling because there's too much going on, too many employees. How have you changed the process, or changed the system for you to now accurately detect whether the person is the right fit for what they're doing, and if they are overloaded or they have the right amount of work and things of that nature?
That's a really bold question. Hard answer. I hope I figured it out. You'll know in 10 years. Right? That's the real answer. As Jackson's programs continue to build and scale, do we have the right type of balance? I'll feel more confident answering that in 10 years. But I will say that one of the biggest realities is it's not falling on my shoulders right now. My team members are leaning better in to executive level communications. And that one person, I got to give her a shout out. Her name's Daniela. Right. She knows how to push back at me when it comes to how we're building things. But she brings a great voice to Maria Victoria and to Cindy, who also at times, or Cynthia, who also want to push back. And so the team sometimes has to, as founders, we either have to learn how to be way better listeners, way softer with our self-assuredness, or we got to create some environments with our team members where our team members are more willing to challenge us. That is a very hard balance for me to personally figure out. But like I said, I got to give a huge shout out to Danielle and the team, because they're doing a better job of saying no and saying, Jackson, this is not something that is going to be in our best interest. And they're looking out for the best interest of the company, not just themselves, and finding people that can support me like that. I mean, I think everybody throughout my life who's been in my company, with the exception of maybe a handful of 50 plus people, since way back when I ran JCal Digital, has had the good intention of trying to help me as a founder figure out how we're moving forward for everybody's sake. But I just happen to be blessed with 6 of those people, by my side right now, who are really in it for the right reasons, Abi. And any founder out there, anybody who's trying to build, like, find people who really care about both you and your purpose, and that are going to challenge you when you're wrong about it, because we will all be wrong at some points. We're not, even though I've got a great purpose, I'm not always perfectly aligned with that purpose. And so I'm super grateful for my team.
So hiring the right people, right?
It's huge, man. I got to have the right people by my side.
Jackson, this has been great. If someone's watching this, they want to work with you, they want to connect with you, they like what you're doing, they want to follow in your vision, what's the best place for them to reach out to you?
For sure. Well, if you're a founder or a visionary, come and join me, visionproslive.com, and click the button that says Be My Guest and mention that Abi sent you. That will help give me context. And then also on the AI marketplace, we want leaders by our side in that. The first 50 people who are involved in that, we're going to continue this program for years and years and years. And so they've got an opportunity to step up, build their brands with us, but also become a leader in that environment. So come and join me.
Jackson, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom. This was awesome.
Thank you, Abi.